Welcome to the Step by Step podcast by Hidden Strength. We really hope you enjoy this episode.
Hello, and welcome back to the Step by Step podcast by Hidden Strength. And today, well, there weren't enough young people who wanted to be on the podcast. So if you want to come on, be a guest, maybe even host an episode, reach out to us on our socials and we would love to have you. So we thought what best than have the mental health lead, myself, answer some of your questions that we put out a Q&A. And we're just going to go through them, see what we can do together, any advice, any help, but there's always the Hidden Strength app, which is available every day from 7 till 9 p.m. if you want to talk about things with one of our incredible team of therapists. So, all anonymous, first and foremost, I feel betrayed by my friends. What can I do? I mean, being betrayed, that's completely valid, but I think it's a case of working out where that comes from. Process it, feel your feelings about it, heal, and let it go. And that sounds so, I know that sounds way easier said than done, but what about the situation that allows you to be betrayed? Is it a cross of boundaries? Do you need to have a conversation with your friends and just be like, hey, I just want to air my side of things, and maybe it can promote a positive conversation. And maybe your friends don't even realize that they've crossed a boundary and they've done something that makes you feel betrayed, but also you're so valid. If you're angry, be angry, but don't want you to bottle it. What else do we have? I don't know what I want to do with my life and it's stressing me out. How do I figure things out? Goodness me. I don't think anyone has anything figured out in life, but something that helped me was I did a mind map and was like, okay, put my name in the middle. And just little things about me. What do I enjoy? What are my passions? What am I interested in? And you'd be surprised with not only how much you can bring to the table, but also you might be able to identify a job or maybe a location that you find yourself living in or a job that you can see yourself doing. I think I have ADHD. What can I do? Firstly, God bless the rise of TikTok and the ADHD era because it's allowed so many more people to feel validated, but also it's promoting a conversation and people just thinking they're quirky or, you know, they have traditional traits that do align with ADHD, especially in women. I don't know if this is a guy or a girl that's brought this in, but especially in women, there's so much research that needs to be done. How we're all seen as scholars, very quiet, but it's just the power of masking. So what can you do? Online, and please go to a trusted source. There is a diagnostic criteria. Look through that first to make sure that you do tick those boxes. And it's so silly to say because a checklist shouldn't define a potential diagnosis for you, but go through it. There are some great resources. I'm happy to link them at the end and allow yourself to kind of gauge where you are at because neurodivergence is such a big spectrum. And once you have that, go and speak to your GP. And if you go to your GP with evidence, and that sounds silly, I know it does, but kind of proving your points and saying, I think I have ADHD because blah, 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 blah. I think I have ADHD because I do this in my life and I saw that on the diagnostic criteria that relates. It allows them to put the dots together as well. They can put you on a waiting list. The waiting list is quite long at the moment, but just having that acknowledgement of being on a waiting list can open the doors to so much more support as well. And hopefully you'll get the answers that you're looking for. But there are so many great ADHD communities out there. So if you feel like you need some peer support or someone else that might understand what you're going through, do it. What else do we have? Okay, I feel like my friends are drifting away and I'm scared of being left out. What should I do? Address it. Let it be a case of, oh, well, rather than what ifs, because the what ifs start overthinking. And if you go on the overthinking spiral, it's super hard to come out of it. But also addressing it in the sense of, is it a natural drifting apart? Because especially as we get older, we all have different priorities, different things come up, and we just naturally go down separate paths, and that's totally okay. That some people come into our life for a reason, for a season. It's just working out what category they fall into. If it's not, make a plan to stay connected. Especially lately, there's so much power in long distance, low maintenance friendships. So you don't have to see each other all the time, but when you do, you just click. And also, if you don't see each other often, because you have different priorities and whatnot, it allows you to appreciate the friendship a little bit more. Most of my friends are long distance, low maintenance, and we're all having a great time. I'm constantly comparing myself to others on social media, and it makes me feel inadequate. How can I stop? Gosh, I mean, let's be honest. How you look and what you give out to the world, like in a physical sense, is the least interesting thing about you. And it should be a case of comparing to your past self. Like, look at the growth, look at how far you've come. Because let's be honest, comparing and despairing on social media is definitely a thing. But I think it's reframing it and putting it as a positive of look at where you are now. But if you are finding that having those moments of self-care, self-gratitude, and really appreciating what you bring as a person isn't quite enough, reduce your time on social media. Okay, I'm overwhelmed by schoolwork and feel like I can't cope with the pressure. How can I manage my stress? Share the stress, because you might be masking, you might be in autopilot. People might just think that's your personality. They might not know that you are bottling up quite a lot of stress, and that's so unhealthy, not just mentally, but that can manifest in physical symptoms too. Share it. Whether that is just talking to your friends, if you're in a group chat, or even just sharing with a trusted adult and be like, I've got a lot going on right now. Even just saying that is an icebreaker to encourage a bigger conversation. But also, if you're going to look at managing stress, and you might be that person, because I definitely am, where I still want to get the job done, but doing it all at 100 miles an hour isn't serving me any purpose or any joy. Look at time management strategies. And there's the Pomodoro method, is where you set a timer on your phone. Most commonly it's 20 minutes, and then you get a 10-minute break, but you can change that to be 25 minutes, 5-minute break, 45 minutes, 15-minute breaks, and kind of set yourself a timer and say to yourself, I'm going to get as much work done in that time, and then take a breather. And you can either come back to it, or maybe you work on a few different subjects each evening, and just see how that goes. Otherwise, set yourself 3 non-negotiables. So no matter what happens, as long as you get the 3 non-negotiables done, you can say to yourself, I've made progress. Small steps make big changes, and hopefully, little by little, step by step, it can make you feel much better, and you might be able to see the gravity of the work that you've done. What else? My parents don't understand me, and we argue a lot. How can I improve my relationship with them? The power of communication. Statistically speaking, that parents are going to be from a different generation to you, and it's a whole different way of conditioning, social conditioning. Some things that they look at, especially the boomers, they just think it's the norm. But then to the Gen Zs, the Gen Alphas, and even the millennials, it's like, whoa, that's not okay. And allowing them to see the other side of the coin. It's super, super hard, because as grown-ups, we can get stuck in our ways. But if you're able to show your side and your perspective, it might allow them to kind of see where you're coming from. But also, they might share their side of things and say, we don't understand you because of X, Y, and Z. And then you would be able to ask any questions, address any concerns, and hopefully you might not agree, but there is a common understanding of where each other's coming from. It's not easy though. Parents can be tricky because they just want the best for you. And sometimes what they think is the best for you isn't actually what you need. What else? My body is changing and I don't feel comfortable in my skin. How can I boost my self-confidence? Okay, this is a super tricky one because it's super subjective, but change is normal. And we're so used to our body being a certain way, functioning a certain way. Just the slightest shift can completely throw us out of whack and completely kind of change our routine. It's reframing it. Think of it like your body has done so much for you at this point, and it might just need to reset. And then just think about the work your body is going to do to help you as you're getting older. Like, our body has so many different purposes. And as we change, we don't realize that those purposes might change on the priority scale. But practice self-care too. Maybe it's just moments of gratitude, saying to yourself, I'm grateful that my body has done X, Y, and Z. And even looking at yourself in the mirror, it's so hard, and it's such an ick to begin with, that looking yourself directly in the mirror, picking 3 things that you're grateful that your body does for you, tell them to yourself, look dead into your own eyes in the reflection. At first, it's really, really difficult. But after 7 days, there's so much research that shows how we almost start to believe our own narratives. And believing our own narratives means helping your self-confidence, because your narrative is your reality. And I hope that allows you to recognize your worth. And like I said before, how our bodies are the least interesting things about us. There's so much more that we bring to the space, and so much more that people care about rather than how you look. I recently lost a loved one, and I don't know how to deal with the grief. What should I do? Firstly, I'm so sorry. Grief is so freaking hard. And like, we had the 5 stages of grief, and those 5 stages never go in a set order. You could start with processing, but then you go back to being angry, and then you accept things, and then you're pleading and just saying, like, if I could just have a sign from them. It's so jumbled, it's so miscombobulated, and it's such a roller coaster that is completely exhausting. And the way that we look at grief, and the way that when I work with people, I say any traumatic event or anything that is such a negative experience on you, if you look at your brain, I'm going to put my phone down. If you look at your brain like shelves, very dark and traumatic experiences turn into black boxes. And at the moment, because grief is really sudden, that black box can be right at the front of your brain, and it can be really hard to look at everything else because you're so focused on the grief. But what we want to do is get to a point where we can get that grief to be a small enough box that it sits in the back of your brain in the top shelf, because it's always going to be there, but it's looking at ways that you can still allow yourself to have a life, but whilst remembering and processing something that's happened to you. But please, if you take anything away from this, don't keep it to yourself. If that's support groups online, there's a rise in people posting social media videos about their grief, and it's finding communities, and it's finding your people who get it and who can help you. But if you are finding that it gets to a point where grief is completely taking over your life, speak to someone and speak to a professional. And like, our therapists are all trained in managing grief. Or if you just need a sounding board to be like, it's so hard and I'm so sad and I don't know what to do, like, allow us to take that emotional weight from you. But I'm sending so much love. Grief is really, really hard, and just allow yourself time and grace, and know that it's not going to be easy. And those 5 stages of grief, they never go in the same order. And I hope you get to a point where that black box is at a suitable side, that it just sits there. I hope you're okay. Grief sucks, man. Okay, I'm worried that I might be depressed, but I'm scared to talk to anyone about it. What should I do? Why are you scared to talk to anyone about it? Like, what's the worst case scenario in your mind? Like, are you thinking someone's going to invalidate you? And invalidating arguably is the worst outcome with any mental health situation. But is it a case of you don't want to accept the reality that you might be depressed? And it's totally okay. Like, it's one of the most common conditions in the UK. I'm assuming that you're from the UK, that you sent this in. Can you look at ways that you're communicating? If it's you don't want to verbalise the fact that you might be depressed for now, because that allows you to kind of set your reality and be like, oh, wow, thinking it is one thing, but vocalising it is another. Could you kind of journal or write everything out, even if it's just tapping and getting it out of your system and seeing it in a written form? It's nothing to be scared about. Asking for help and being vulnerable is one of the scariest forms that we can be in as humans, but find your person, find your safe space, and know that if you have that safe space where you can let your guard down and talk about how you're feeling, it just encourages a conversation that helps. And by helping, whatever that looks like to you, if you just need someone to say, I've been there, or some of the symptoms I'm experiencing happens to me and this is what I do, it might be a conversation about medication, and taking meds is absolutely okay. Look at the post your pill movement. I mean, it's normalizing something that so many people would kind of get the ick from, but completely valid. Find out your why, what makes you think that you might be depressed, and why are you scared about vocalizing it. And if it is that you don't want that to become a reality, look at other ways that you can talk to people and allow yourself to come to terms with it. But being depressed is absolutely okay. Sometimes it's so valid, and sometimes it's such a natural response to the situations that we've been in. I hope you're okay. I know I'm saying that a lot. I just hope you're all okay. How do I handle it when people make fun of me for being different? Oh my gosh. People can just be horrible sometimes. And sometimes it's that whole thing, hurt people. But being different it's underrated in my opinion. The fact that we don't all conform to the same way, and sometimes you just living your best life and being authentically you is something that another person could struggle with because they've never thought of themselves in that way. If you're being different because of the way that you dress, it's probably because they never imagined themselves having a different dress code. If it's because of how you look, I mean, we can get so stuck in our own narratives that when we meet other people in different presentations, different appearances, different personalities, it can throw us off. And if people are making fun of you, 9 out of 10 times it's because they don't get it. And if they don't get it, that's totally okay. Like, that's not your responsibility to try and make them get it. They're losers though, I'll tell you that for fun. But if at one point you feel like you can't handle the impacts of that, please speak to a trusted adult, whether that's a teacher, whether that's a support service. Don't allow yourself to bottle, because bottling it and the impacts of that is going to be so much worse. Oh, people, man. I think you're wonderful, whoever you are. I'm struggling to balance my studies, social life, and extracurriculars. How can I manage my time better? I am going to put my phone down for this because I say this method to so many people. It's called the leapfrog method. So it depends how you plan your week. If you're a Monday to Friday or a Monday to Sunday, have each column for each day. And we mentioned it earlier, have 3 non-negotiables, 3 things that no matter what happens, if you have the worst day, as long as you get those 3 things done, that you can have that sense of achievement and be like, I did that. Start with your 3 non-negotiables. And then if you're thriving, if you're slaying, have 2 backups. And if you have time, use 2 of those backups and add them to your day. And then productivity's top tier. But if you haven't been able to, and maybe you've just done 1 backup, the extra one then goes on to your non-negotiables for the next day. So it leapfrogs over. And then you start again. You have your 3 non-negotiables, 2 backups. If you do your backups, amazing. If not, those 2 become 2 of the 3 of the non-negotiables the next day. And as you leapfrog over, by the end of your week, you should have nothing left that needs to be carried over. But it also allows you to be aware of timing, look after yourself, and you're not just grinding away all day. If that doesn't work for you, the other one is having, I call it the radar resource. It's where you brain dump everything that you need to do, and then you kind of put it into 3 categories. Stuff that is time sensitive and needs to be done sooner rather than later. The middle column is on your radar, so you're acknowledging that it needs to be done, but it doesn't need to be done immediately, and they're not time sensitive. So if there's homework or if there's other tasks that you know that's got to be done in a few days' time, maybe a week's time, it goes on there. And then depending on how busy you are, if you have to recreate that resource every few days, once a week, you'll be able to see the shifts, and it just allows your brain to know that you don't have to do everything at once. You're acknowledging that things need to be done, but you're taking the pressure off yourself. I think my best friend is jealous of me and it's affecting our friendship. What should I do? It's nothing to do with you. If she's jealous of you, that's her problem. And how people react to things is not your responsibility. What you should do, if you think it's affecting the friendship to the point that it needs to have a conversation, and if you're a good enough friend, an uncomfortable 5 minutes is way better than just having this awkward elephant in the room. But if she's jealous, why? Maybe she needs her own support, and maybe she needs to talk to someone outside of the friendship and maybe address kind of what's going on and what's making her feel jealous. What you should do, if you want to save the friendship, have a conversation about it, but it's not your responsibility to put her jealousies at ease. If you want to be a great friend and listen to what's going on, love that for you, but don't fall into the drama triangle where you become the rescuer and you try and save people in their situations, because that's not what being a friend is. Okay, what's life like being a therapist? It's great. I'm the mental health lead at Hidden Strength, so I don't really get the opportunities to be a therapist. I provide therapeutic support. It allows you to appreciate boundaries, and it allows you to see the work and the personal journey that the other person's going on. And being a professional hype woman, which is what I call it, is such a rewarding job, because you're noticing small changes about the person that you're working with and how that's going to impact their outlooks and perspectives. It's great. It can be challenging, it can be emotionally draining, but then it's the importance of self-care and looking after yourself, because you can't pour from an empty cup. Like they say on airplanes, like, put your mask on first. We all roll our eyes at it, but the reality is it's actually true, because we can't do anything and we can't be helpful to other people if we're not helping ourselves. And finally, do therapists have therapy? Hell yeah, we do. How can we help? Literally just said it. How can we help other people if we're not helping ourselves? But also, when we have conversations, we might not realize that we have our own internal bias. There might be a case that we're triggered by something and we didn't quite realize. And maybe it allows us to be like, okay, I need to process that because I'm working with this person and we're all about helping them. But I also need to help me too, because therapists don't put themselves in a situation where they feel really uncomfortable, because we're all quite emotionally intelligent. But also it allows us a space, just like we allow other people a space to just exist and be their authentic selves. We need that too. And most mental health professionals will have clinical supervision, and it's really, really helpful because it allows us to be on the other side of the conversation, which allows us to have a better perspective and be more relatable with the people that we're working with. And also we go to the gym to look after our bodies, so you don't need a reason to speak to a mental health professional. It's just a way of looking after your brain. And to be honest, I think for now that's it. If there's any more questions that you have, feel free to drop us a message on socials. But if you feel like there's something here that you want to talk about in more detail, our therapy is available every day, 7 till 9 p.m. And we'd be more than happy to be your therapists in your pocket and have a conversation. Thanks.
Thank you so much for watching today.
If you feel like you need additional support after the podcast, we've linked resources below.
Please like, share, subscribe, whatever you're listening to us on today.
And download our Hidden Strength app.